Hey there, welcome to episode 131 of the Cafe Genius Impresarios audio program. I'm your host, Dan Hugo. Recording this at 10, it's going to flip, 10:09 a.m. on Friday, August 29, 2025. Today's title and topic, Shh, don't tell anyone. Today we're talking about stealth mode startups. But again, don't tell anyone. If you're not familiar with the Cafe Genius Impresarios audio program, I will tell you, first of all, I've been thinking about this. The impresarios part was supposed to be about interviewing people. The people doing the cool stuff. Those are the impresarios, of course, with two S's. So we're gonna have to figure out a cool way to make that true. Possibly a video version that will be like a separate tracked, a separate RSS feed. But so the Cafe Genius Impresarios has really been more of an audio essay about not only the impresarios, but the entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem in which we are advancing our respective causes. Cafe Genius itself is two words, two great tastes put together. Cafe with two F's is an homage of sorts to the Cafe Centro coffee shop in lowly San Francisco in South Park. It was an actual park. It was located almost, I think it was almost literally across the street from, I don't know if it was when the Pac Bell Park was there, but it was certainly for AT&T ballpark and now the Oracle ballpark. So you could walk from the ballpark, you could go to any number of places, or you could duck into this park and go grab a coffee at a coffee shop, Cafe Centro, with a tagline where startups start. It is where Jack Dorsey, for better or worse, was hacking away on what would become Twitter. Did he write the original code for Twitter? That's a question for another time. I liked Cafe Central. I had been there a couple times. It was a very, very cool spot. Did not survive so long after the pandemic, and this is unfortunate. I often say that the Greater Vegas entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem needs a Cafe Centro, probably like 5 spread out at different, the Southwest section, the Summerlin, West Side, East Side, maybe Henderson, definitely downtown. So what is that, 6 or 7? One up near me would be nice, but nobody comes up here, so. And then Genius was actually named after the Genius Lunch, not to mention just smart people in general or just smartness. The Genius Lunch was something we used to do during the downtown project days. It was an ad hoc gathering of people working on their stuff, rather than like a full-scale meetup. Just, hey, if you have time, come on out. Well, whoever showed up, catch up on what you're doing, who's doing what's up, what's down, gossip, etc. So the Genius Lunch is part of Cafe Genius. And we have attempted to relaunch the Genius Lunch with not a lot of interest. So we'll have to see how we can dial that in with the new age entrepreneurs. We'll see what happens. And then the impresarios, those are the people that I would love to see at the Genius Lunches. So hopefully, wherever you've found this audio program, and the number of places is growing, you're able to locate the episode description, which contains the show notes, including a summary that I'll read to you. It's 3 sentences. 2? I think it's 2. 2 long sentences. There are a couple of links, only the host links for today as usual. Someday we'll have a guest. My shameless self-promotion links, and when we get to the links, I'll describe the current state of affairs. So the show notes, the summary of today's episode, titled Shh, don't tell anyone. No, it's just shh. Have you ever been shushed and you're like, what? There was a time when being in stealth mode was cool, mysterious, maybe even interesting once the veil of secrecy was lifted. I'm wondering out loud if we are back to something like that in Vegas, with the more interesting endeavors maybe staying below the radar, maybe. The links for today's episode and the general links, there's nothing specific for today. My Buy Me a Coffee profile page, buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo. There's a profile page there. The reason I have stuck with Buy Me a Coffee for years is that it's a free-form page. It's on a site that everybody knows. Everybody knows what Buy Me a Coffee is. And it's a horrible editor that they have to edit your profile page, but it's functional. And it's a way, it has been a way for me to have links to my various audio programs and projects and whatnot in a place that I basically don't have to maintain. So I didn't have to go buy a domain for this or anything. So it's buymeacoffee.com/Dan Hugo. It works for that. Now, as I mentioned, all of my audio programs are now available at their respective domains. There are websites at them. They are not beautiful websites yet, but there is a one-page landing with links with a Spotify embed to play the most current episode of the audio program in question. There is a cafegenius.org website. It used to have descriptions of pitch workout room and pitch bingo and a calendar. Now it has, they all look very similar right now, which is purely coincidence. But if you visit cafegenius.org, you will find Spotify embedded MP3 player, links to the Spotify for Creators profile page, and the YouTube channel, youtube.com/cafegenius, CAFFEGEINUS. Can I spell? No. Those are linked from buymeacoffee.com/Dan Hugo. So we have the Spotify profile page, which has links to Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, Spotify, the RSS feed, might be iHeartRadio. I got to add some more links. Spotify doesn't support every platform in the universe, but I'm trying to get the links out there more. But there is the authoritative cafegenius.org website, which is a work in progress. Don't laugh. But I set up all the stuff, all the background, the certificates through Let's Encrypt, obviously having the virtual servers running on what is essentially a VPS. It used to be a Linode, but now it's Akamai. But I've had that thing for months, and I'm like, why am I not using this? So there are also servers for there are websites for quagglingsand.com, ffstalk.com. InnovateForVegas.org has had its own for a while. That's our nonprofit, so I don't really try to promote that too much. It's like a separate thing, nonprofit, charity. So I do have a link to it, but I don't want to sound like I'm shilling or anything like this. But my works, Quaggling Sand, FFS Talk, cafegenius.org, and danhugo.com is where I will have all the stuff for my two little sort of random projects. One used to be hosted exclusively on Buy Me a Coffee, and that's the next link, buymeacoffee.com/danhugo/posts is where you would find episodes of Buy Me an Update published on Mondays, a 5-minute or less audio program, quick rundown on the week's previous topics for the audio programs, and then any news and announcements upcoming. That is now published there first, but then very shortly after, as in minutes, maybe an hour, published on Spotify and YouTube and all the other places. The YouTube channel is a little wonky. Still trying to sort out why it marks things as private. I've seen other people talking about this 9 months ago on Reddit, so who knows? Try to fix that. So buy me an update. And then the third link, Coffee Solo, is my sort of random, no schedule, no set topics, whenever, about whatever audio program. It was exclusively available on ko-fi.com, ko-fi.com/danhugo. It is now also, so it's published there first, it's also available the same places. And it is also linked from buymeacoffee.com/danhugo, and it is available on the danhugo.com website. So buy me an update and Coffee Solo, kind of personal danhugo.com efforts. So there you go. Nothing stealthy about that. No reason to be shh. Finally, we can get to the audio episode, and I will warn you now, I already have my production by a street sound effects that are actually real, but I can hear some sort of rock grinding or who knows what's going on out there. So if it gets loud, I will pause and not put you through that. So if there's an abrupt change in my flow of thought, rocks, crushing of rocks. Let's get on with it, shall we? Keep it secret, keep it safe. There is something to be said now and then for keeping one's cards close to the vest, especially if you come up with something heretofore unknown. If you have something truly novel, maybe not mentioning it all over town is the way to proceed, at least until whatever protections you feel you need to have are in place. Patents can sometimes do it, or military contracts, who knows? But nobody should be forced to disclose their what they're working on and so on. So that's fine. By the way, this is not about me. Like, you shouldn't do stealth. I'm just commenting on it. I think it's something that's happening here in Vegas. It's not good, it's neither good nor bad, but I'm just commenting on it, like a whole audio program episode. There are some things that are difficult to keep under wraps entirely. If you are looking to keep your name out of any mentions, like if you have public records, they are what they are. Maybe you form an LLC or something, so your name is going to be on some corporate documents for your state. So the Nevada Secretary of State has the Silver Flume platform. You can look up who's doing what. Or you have a law firm, or if you misspell it, you say a law first. A law firm do the filings of various bits of paperwork and whatnot without divulging identifying information. So they can, I don't know if there's a way to form like an anonymous corporation or something, but that gets tricky. That's beyond my purview, so who knows? If you have to lease some office space, or if you're starting a restaurant, you gotta lease a space there. You gotta apply for health department stuff. You gotta post a notice or something. There's always going to be something where people, and here in Vegas, the restaurant business especially, and bars, so the hospitality industry, there are people that just want to talk about, like, oh, hey, the chef from this is going to open another place over there, and so on. So that's hard to really keep under wraps. Somewhere at some time, someone will put two and two together and it will get out. So depending on what you're doing, it's kind of impossible, but it might be possible. On the other hand, there are some secrets worth keeping for long times, perhaps. Secret recipes, secret algorithms, secret business relations, and so on might be better kept off the books, so to speak. And surely the ingredients that make up your soft drink or fried chicken breading taste the way they do without knowing how they are actually made may lend some mystique. The same may go for some tech or other things. So secrets of whatever scope are okay sometimes if you can keep them. So again, I'm not poo-pooing stealth mode. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. Just commenting, just making some observations. So some secrets are okay. It's not for me to say, really. At the other end, open season. So at the other end of the spectrum, open source development under any of who knows how many license possibilities to enable others to see what you are working on, how you're doing it, how you're doing at it, how far along you are, possibly contribute their own effort to your work. And in many license scenarios, take your work and build on it for something they are doing. Everything that we work on at Innovate for Vegas Foundation, for example, is default GPLv3 or Creative Commons. I can't remember the symbol, but share-like attribution, I think. I don't know if we have non-commercial in there. I can't remember. Those are the defaults. They're always up for discussion. But those are the initial default licensing and terms of collaboration, sharing. Yeah, okay. Sorry, I had to pause and ponder. The nice thing about this, about the open source and sharing and not having to worry, you can talk about what you are working on, whatever it is. This usually leans towards some software project. I mean, everybody reflexively thinks, oh, open source software, of course. But there is an open hardware infrastructure and communities around the world. And I can't remember if it's OHI, Open Hardware Initiative, or Open Hardware or something. I used to know the person that ran whatever it was. This was many years ago. Open Biology, Open Bio. These are efforts to share, to collaborate on the development of things that are not necessarily software, but are still impactful and may help one group doing something and another group something that's sort of related. Oh, look, we can actually benefit from sharing what we know. So there's other stuff. The possibilities really are endless. I wonder if there's like open pasta. I think there is, actually. Let me check that. I think I've heard that. I don't think it has to do with actual pasta, but open pasta? Open pasta is a thing at Open Builds, and that has something to do with open hardware. Open hardware has a cool symbol. It's like a gear, like gear teeth on the open source software icon that looks like a part of a circle with a chunk taken out of it. Anyway, there are open pasta recipes at the Barilla website. Is that Barilla? Open pasta recipes. Huh. So yeah, why not share? The world becomes a better place when you can share what you're talking about. And you don't have to spend time. Well, okay, energy. When your endeavors are open for all to see, the difference comes down to passion, right? The energy spent keeping secrets can instead be spent making better stuff and clearing a path for your business model, whatever it may be. The business model for Innovate for Vegas Foundation, for example, is to have people who develop the open source initiatives that we're working on continue to work on things if we can spin them out into like little startups or a service bureau or consulting or vendor relationships, depending on what it is. So, oh, you already worked on this thing. You should be offered a job to continue working on it for money and go from there. I'm making it sound simple, but it's not a new idea though. So you don't have to spend money keeping things secret. Being so good at it that you can show people your cards is a different thing. And usually, it's usually exciting and a bit scary. You're not hiding behind oh, nobody knows what we're working on, so they won't know how far behind schedule we are. But everybody in the world knows how that works. So it'd be probably weird if you came in early. Oh, we were going to ship in a year, but we're done now. Whoa, how'd that happen? Now, not everything is open source. Maybe you are simply, not everything has to be open source, I should say. Maybe you are simply open about what you're pursuing. You share details, you tell the story, but you aren't necessarily putting everything out there. I think this falls into an open side of the line still because you are not spending your energy hiding from others. Yeah, what are you working on? I can't tell you. Stealth mode. We're in stealth mode. I can't tell you. Can't share anything. Got to go by. That's just weird, I think. So you don't have to be concerned that someone might steal my idea. Put that in quotes. I don't want anybody to steal my idea. This does happen. Sometimes ideas are stolen, but maybe less often than the paranoia might justify. So far be it from me to tell you that you should not keep your idea secret or protect your intellectual property. Like I said initially up there above, if your protections are in place before you want to talk about it, that's totally fine. Totally get it. But intellectual property and talking about what you're trying to accomplish, there's like a weird line there. And I wish more people were less paranoid, especially in the early days. But we'll get to that in a second. There's like a middle ground, I think. What I have seen so far within the entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem of Greater Vegas in my 12 years, almost 12 years and 1 month here, is a mix of those who are aspirational. They have an idea, but maybe no idea where to go or how to get there, how to get started. Where or how to get started is what I actually wrote. Those who are milling around looking for engagement, clients to sell something and so on. So they're in the middle like, hey, I'm an entrepreneur, but maybe I can help you be one for money. Okay. And then those who are working, another little typo there. They are spending their time on their startup effort, whatever it is, rather than milling around at meetups and getting pitches or whatever thrown at them, or, hey, you want me to do no, we don't have funding yet. So I totally understand where people are like, you know what, I'm just going to spend time. That during the downtown project, I've mentioned this before. There was like a dinner, some sort of a community dinner at the WeWork. No, that's later. At the Work in Progress. Where was it? Was that on Carson? And it was before the downtown podcast was recording. So if you were heading downtown for the downtown podcast, you could go grab a snack, have conversations, figure out what people are working on, who's doing what, whoever wants to talk about that. And then you could shoot over to the podcast and you could be in the audience and do your thing. And then you could go to Gold Spike after and do more fake networking. That's something I've talked about previously. So I think that's healthy. But sometimes it's a waste of time. And so I had talked to people back then. I said, hey, I never see you at as an example, the Work in Progress community dinner thing. And the person said, yeah, I'm trying to work on my startup. I don't have time to go and hang out. I'm trying to get this done. Totally sensible, totally reasonable. But the question then is, do you kind of find yourself by default in a stealth mode? Like nobody knows what you're doing. Is that good? Do you want it to be? If you want it to be secret, then that's fine. That's good. But if it's really just you're kind of becoming disconnected from the people around you, Is that good? Is it going to come in handy later when you need to reach out to people or look for people to hire? Or it's always nice to kind of have some connections, in my opinion, but totally individual decision. So the middle group in general might be inclined to talk about their ideas, especially at the aspirational end. In fact, that happens all the time. Oh, I'm going to try to work on this, or here's my idea. I just don't know where to start, right? So you kind of have to jump in and just see if anybody wants to give you some thoughts or advice or something, and that's fine. While those hard at work at the other end may not want to take the time, or maybe they may be on the fence about what to share and with whom, this can make for an unexpected startup scene, as I've described in previous episodes, where a lot of people seem to be looking for how to start or looking for clients or other transactional interactions, not so much in the way of actual entrepreneurs showing their progress, discussing their goals, putting their wares on display, so to speak. So it's not zero. Don't tell people I am discounting all entrepreneurs out in public, but the numbers seem low and they do not appear to be growing quickly. I think if there's this global innovation hub, next Silicon Valley, startup scene exploding, total, huge, crazy, I would expect to see kind of a grow, even if it's slowly growing, but I would expect to see more. Instead, whenever people talk about the startup scene, they mention the same couple of people that, oh, here's somebody, he had 3 startups now. And okay, great. Is there another person? Is there anyone else doing anything that we can talk about? Since any place can be an innovation hub of sorts, so there's nothing magical. Like you can be in the middle of nowhere and start a company, right? Especially now with internet connectivity. Even if you have to go with Starlink or similar, right? You can do something, especially if you're innovative. But the entrepreneurs may be tucked in. I was going to say tucked in focusing. That doesn't make sense. Tucked in focusing, as I said, so they're doing their thing. They're not getting out and talking to people. And this may give some impression that the so-called startup scene is not going anywhere. Maybe that's what we're seeing in Vegas. Also, and this is important, some people think of a startup scene. I just don't like that term, as I will mention again. They think of a startup scene as people writing apps or doing something specifically technology focused. Nowadays, it would be AI. 20 minutes ago, it was the metaverse. 40 minutes ago, it was the blockchain. So you got to be doing something in tech. The Vegas Tech Fund, Vegas Tech. Tech. This need not be the case by any means. So some working on their entrepreneurial endeavors may not feel they want or need to hang out in the so-called tech scene because they're doing something else. I totally know how they feel. Now, can stealth mode work? As I mentioned, I saw a lot of stealth mode going on in Silicon Valley days. Between 1993, when I first got there, in July of 1993, when I moved to Sunnyvale, California, and 2001, August 2001, when I departed for the last time, moved back to Phoenix. The dot-com explosion, transitioning to the dot-com bomb, or maybe the dot bomb. Venture capital, while not new by any means. I'm reading a book right now about innovation and entrepreneurialism and whatnot. And there was a section on capital funding, like through history. And it did not get invented in 1993, nor in 1970, nor in 1945, nor any other recent time. By way of example, I don't know if you remember this guy at Christopher Columbus, and he got some venture capital from King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella back in the late 1400s to do a little sailing across the ocean blue and all that silliness. He wasn't sure where he landed, but whatever. It certainly brought the cards closer to the vest, though. I don't want to risk. I don't want somebody else to take my idea. I don't want to risk the investment. So surely the thought of losing out on some capital investment because someone stole the idea was a massive concern. And as we've learned over the years, it's not zero, but having an idea stolen outright is more difficult than it sounds. There might be some corporate espionage. Somebody might, steal your source code or steal your recipe or steal your drawings or something. That's different. But merely talking about your idea, it's not easy to rebuild an entire concept built on passion and knowledge and experience from a 2-minute elevator pitch, for example, right? So some context. But again, it's your idea, right? I don't want people to steal it. Okay, don't talk about it. That's fine. Common wisdom now is that startup ideas are rarely stolen, and I have generally concurred with this. But there is something to be said for keeping some of the cards hidden away. So again, if you don't want to talk about it, that's fine. It is easier to talk about collaboration. Look for people to join as employees or consultants and to do some early marketing, maybe some tuning of an idea or even pivoting if the idea is not locked up in a box. So if you can share some parts of it, maybe. But again, up to you. Depending on what the idea is specifically, like maybe reverse engineering alien technology to build aircraft, it may make sense to keep the whole thing totally secret with like military guards and stuff. But I think there's a continuum to ponder. So it totally depends on you and your team, if there is one, and what you're doing, your area of focus. I used to tell people when I was working for Intel, now if you were hanging out in Hillsboro, Oregon, I didn't say Oregon, Nevada, one of those. If you were, and this happened while I was up there several times, of course, because I worked for Intel. If you're at a bar or restaurant out and about, there was like an 80% chance that someone sitting near you that you was there when you got there, or they came and sat down, they're not with you, probably an Intel employee. I used to tell people, here in Vegas, the chance of me running into another Intel employee are 0. I could yell code names all day and no one would care. They would know what I was talking about, etc. So it depends. Stealth mode can probably work. I mean, it works in general, right? So I'm wondering though if it works in the larger sense. So I wonder if it is appropriate in the early days or the formative time in early days of a so-called startup scene, which I think we're in now. Despite being so many years into it, I think we're still in this like freshman scenario. For example, if a new restaurant is opening in Vegas, it is difficult to keep the news quiet, but the concept of the restaurant, the menu, some little details can remain secret. They may find out who the chef is or who the restaurant owner is. Oh, this person's opening another location and they have a reputation of some sort. David Chang is working out. Okay, we know who that is. Could be something interesting. So yeah, it's hard to keep all the detail, but then you don't know what the menu is going to be and so on. So some level of stealth may be breached, and sometimes that's okay. That can help to build the energy, the excitement. Some indication of energy levels, potential to discuss even in the abstract, general buzz factors probably figure into any number of entrepreneurial verticals, whether it's food and drink or maybe biotech, AI, the latest app of some sort, the latest service attached to an app, could be anything. So if it's totally secret, nobody knows that this stuff is going on. If there's a little bit of a buzz floating around, then you have a sense that, I am in an environment that is rich and interesting. Not everybody's like turning their back when what are you working on? Hello? No? Okay. So if people are excited enough to at least mention, at least give a little hint, it's probably a little bit healthier in this current, because it's so early. Now, if there were startups dropping every week, there's another announcement. 5 more software companies got funded in Vegas. Great. That's different. But if you have a sense that, why would anyone start a business? I was asked that at CES last year. Why would anyone make a startup in Vegas? And this is by someone from Amsterdam, most definitely in the startup scene in Europe. I didn't have an answer for him. So my take, and I know my voice is withering a little bit. The weather in Vegas is a little wacky. It's very humid for me today where I am. That's the way it is. Sorry. We're almost done. So as I mentioned, I was in Silicon Valley back in the day, 1993 to 2001, 2005 to 2013. My 2 tours. I've done entire episodes on that of Quaggling Sand for sure, and maybe some mentions in impresarios. So I've been there. I've seen it, done it. So the time in Vegas has been interesting. Back in the downtown project days, it was fairly clear what most people were doing. People were pretty excited, and it was pretty transparent. I honestly don't know if there were any stealth mode efforts that maybe never got out of stealth mode. So if there were, I don't know. Once I departed Intel back in one of the earlier massive layoffs a few years ago, that was a harbinger right there, right? I commenced seeking out things to do, maybe locally. So I started talking to people more seriously about, hey, what's going on? I have this, I not only have all of my experience up until Intel, but I have now Intel and all the things I did traveling around, talking to makers and innovators and so on. What's going on? I encountered some people here in Vegas who wanted to be sneaky, who were very, very cautious about sharing their ideas at first. One had me sign a NDA that he wrote with his finger on my phone, on his phone. I think it was on his phone. Maybe it was on my phone, and he had me email. I don't know what it was. He wrote something in hand scrawl on some sort of graphical whatever, and then he had me sign it and send it to him, or he sent it to me, or whatever. And then he was able to tell me that they were trying to come up with a cryptocurrency-based entity that would back a coin, a cryptocurrency coin, with actual gold. Okay. Neat. This is where I started to notice that the notion of having a stealth mode startup to talk about is more of a conversation piece than practical. Like, nobody was going, oh my God, you cracked the code. Gold-backed currencies. So, that hasn't been popular in the United States since like 1970, 71, when gold was $35 an ounce, the gold standard, going off of it thanks to Nixon. Anyway, yeah, saying we're in stealth mode, we can't talk about it. That's probably more interesting than your actual idea. But who am I to say? Who am I to say? The so-called startup scene in the greater Vegas area today is odd. I have mentioned this a few times in previous efforts, and I honestly don't know what the primary scene, I'm still not fond of that label, scene, the startup scene, is a mishmash of that middle ground I mentioned earlier with aspirational people, transactional people intermingling, like I always use the where's my money thing. Every month at the monthly meetup, where's my money? Like, really? I don't know. That doesn't seem healthy to me, but what do I know? The second startup scene, and no, I still do not like the term, but it's a term people use. So second startup scene it doesn't require so much explanation. A second startup scene? I know there is a startup scene. This is aimed at the implementing side of the middle group. So people that are actually doing the work of their startup, they don't think there's so much free time to go hanging out at meetups and whatnot. They may not talk about what they're working on just because they don't have the time or the social interactions going on. So they just keep it to themselves. And the greater Vegas area doesn't really have a mechanism for discovery, for learning about what people are working on and so on. That could change soon. Hey, I think I've talked about this before, but so we start with that middle group on the I'm actually working on my startup side of that continuum. But they're just not spending their time on social interaction, then all the way out to the secret agent stealth mode startup types. So people who are literally like, I can't tell you. Okay. But do you want to come to a meetup and just tell people that you can't tell them what you're working on? Yeah. Hey, speaking of that, we're coming up to the end, I promise, the My Stuff section. So I've mentioned most of these before. Obviously, the Innovate for Vegas Foundation is all open source. I've talked about it. There's a whole Let's Innovate for Vegas audio program you can listen to. You can hear all about it. You can visit our GitHub and website, innovateforvegas.org. You can start there. You can hear the Let's Innovate for Vegas audio program. You can hear you can see that everything's there. There's no secrets. Open to participation and contribution from civic volunteers, local and distal, not to mention collaboration locally and distally. So you can collaborate and you can contribute whether you're in Vegas or somewhere else. Who's better than you? I have my own consulting company here in Vegas. Did you know that? Really Cool Technologies, LLC. Reallycool.com was my first domain name. I purchased it in 1996 when I was working at Apple Computer. True story. I've had it ever since. So Really Cool Consulting, Really Cool Technologies. Yeah, so reallycool.com has been my email address since 1996. It's a one-person shop, no employees. It's where I wrote the cool stuff, but it should be the really cool stuff. By the way, my cube mate at Apple, my office mate actually, we both decided we're going to buy domains. It was $75 at Network Solutions. Back when you had a NIC handle, mine was DH1426. And he went with Mosphere because he wanted to have at symbol Mosphere. So at Mosphere. Yep. There is Cafe Genius, of course, probably open source. We don't have anything published in that way. But it's more about the focus on the entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem. So more about the communities of practice idea around the round table, which we really should have another one, but I got to find people who give a hoot. Not to mention any sort of pitch mingle or pitch workout room or similar that might spring up. So any of that stuff, nothing really proprietary about that. I used to tell people, the pitch workout room is just an open mic. I didn't invent it. It's not my idea. If you want to have one, go ahead. So no real intellectual property developed at this point. It's really just pro-action. The things that I would still call stealth mode that are in my portfolio, I guess, are not really stealth mode. In fact, they are projects and undertakings that I have mentioned in one way or another over the years without any sense of I can't tell you, they've basically just moved. Let me fix that typo there. Moved with a D, past tense. They've moved off the front burners of my startup cooktop. They were not forgotten. In fact, one of them I actually want to kind of make a part of what I'm doing on the front burner. So they're not forgotten, but they're not in need of attention at the moment, except for maybe that one. We'll see. So a couple of ideas that are we could bring those back, or they're back there. I very rarely put something out of its misery. Maybe I'll pick this up in 10 years. Maybe if I'm too far ahead, I got to sync up with reality. And, now is the perfect time. Probably the most visible of my so-called, they're not really stealth mode. I just don't really talk about them too much. But I did create a LinkedIn page for Sentiment Research Collaboratory. And I submitted it to Zero Labs for their Innovation Launchpad Cohort 5, which was July 6th of 2025. So 2 months ago. That was a waste of time, by the way. If I have not talked about this whole idea in detail yet, I definitely will in another episode. I was just I had a 20-minute Zoom call, video call. It wasn't Zoom. And when it ended, I was like, I actually don't want to participate. It was so low energy and so shrugging of shoulders. It was not attractive to me at all. I know what I want to accomplish. I don't really need their input. I don't think they understood what I was trying to accomplish. They didn't really ask good questions, so I don't care, to be honest. But so Zero Labs, I submitted it to. So that's probably the most unstealthy of my stealth mode undertakings right now. It's not something I'm working day to day on at the moment, but I need to put some other pieces in place, or places in peace, before I get to that point. So being in a sort of pseudo stealth mode means not having to explain things to people, which is convenient if I don't know the answers yet. So if you said, well, how are you going to launch SRC? I would say, it's in stealth mode. I kind of have an idea, but I'm not exactly sure yet. So I gotta suss that out. I think sus means something else now, suspect, but used to mean examine, I guess. I don't know. Explore. Final point. I don't think remaining silent for most things in an entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem is a great way to be a part of cultivating its strengths, like innovation culture and general visibility. Being interested and excited enough about what you want to accomplish, if you are those things enough to talk about it with others, even only in person. So you're not spreading it out on the internet, but when you're in a more intimate group, maybe the second startup scene and the genius lunches, you might, let a few details slip and so on. At least people know that, there's some other coolness going on here. I will suggest that this is an essential element of a viable ecosystem in its early days of emergence. You cannot wave a magic wand or sprinkle cash over a region and say, oh, look, another ecosystem. Ta-da. There's more to it than that. So I could be wrong, but I don't think so. But what do you think? And that is where I'm going to leave today's episode on this Friday, August 29th. The time on my clock is now 10:53. When I truncate silence, I'm going to guess this episode will be closer to 41 minutes. My time is 44 minutes and 25 seconds now. So that will move. It will get shorter. So I'm going to say something like 41, 42, somewhere in there. The startup scene in Vegas needs effort. It needs some time to cook, and it needs people like you. So ponder being a part of the second startup scene if you are actually executing on your idea. And let's talk about the Genius Lunch, which is actually, I already know it works. So it's not even something we have to try. Oh, what should we do with the, oh, we already know. That is a solved problem. We already have working historical examples in the same, and I'm speaking to people in Vegas, but you can do this too. Nothing secret. We'll talk about this more another time. Take care, and hopefully if you are listening to this on Friday, have a great weekend, whichever Friday it might be. Or have a great weekend as it approaches whatever day it is today, as you listen to this. Okay, I'll leave it there. Bye.